Hello and welcome to another episode of Busy Talks Presents Real Business Lessons. Guys, today we bring a really unique episode which is podcasting. Now, for all you marketers, there are multiple channels available for you to promote your brand and generate leads digitally. But have you ever thought of podcasting? Podcast can really give you a very high ROI. So let's introduce Miss Neeti.
Hi.
Hi, good
Hi,
evening.
how are you? Good evening. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. Thank you for inviting.
It's my pleasure, and I'm sure that it's everyone else's pleasure here. And we all want to really understand this new channel of marketing which you are going to teach us today.
Awesome. Let's go ahead then.
Okay, so Neeti, to begin with, let's do a bit of introduction. Let's tell people about you. Okay, so you've been an RJ before and RJ Neeti, right? And now you're a podcast consultant.
Yeah.
How has been your journey?
So you rightly mentioned I started my career as a radio jockey, and yes, it was Arjaniti. I did not have any other name but my original name only. Um, I was doing my masters when we got to know about RJ Hunt, which was happening in
Hmm,
my hometown. I went there and I got rejected left, right, and center. So it wasn't a happy story to begin with. And I
okay.
thought, this is such an easy thing. Like, I can talk, this should come naturally to me, but I failed like how? Then we
Hmm,
did a couple of more rounds, and finally, somehow, there was a day when I got it's just still one of the best days of my life when I was on air for the first time. So yeah, that was my journey, and then I continued the radio jockeying journey, and I was connected to audio industry straight for like 6 to 8 years, and then I took a pivot. The
okay.
pivot was that I joined an organization into sales and marketing because we all know marketing was growing at that time, and I also wanted to do something which is more futuristic and which stays full on. So
Hmm,
I joined an organization. They were into 3D printing, and they brought India's first 3D printer. So I joined them in sales and marketing. I did that for 4.5 years almost. And then I realized, like, okay, I've done enough of machine sales and marketing. I have to get back to what I love the most, that is audio industry. And I joined a brand. Basically, it was a small boutique brand. They were into writing, helping writers finish their books. So they stepped into podcasting world, and that's how I was also introduced to podcasting world. And then I felt like, oh, this is a full circle. This is where I started, and this is where I'm going now.
hmm,
And I joined them. I worked with them for some time, and that's how Odd Story came into the picture. Odd Story is the brand which I work with, and yeah, that's how. And it's a podcast production company, and that's how I started. I connected with podcasting. Again, what we do is we help creators, we help brands, we help small businesses put together their podcast. So we
right.
make sure that you are there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even on YouTube, wherever you want. We make sure that you're there.
Okay. We will talk about the channels of the podcast a bit later. So let's talk about how do we start a podcast. If I was to start a podcast today, right? So uh, for a general public, for people who are not aware of what podcasting is and how podcasting works, how should they pick up a niche and what should be their approach to starting their podcast?
Okay, so this is the question that comes to me the most.
Hmm,
Uh, let's talk about how can one start the podcast. First thing is that you need to figure out about the idea. In the idea, there should be a niche. Right now, how to find that niche? It depends on what is the purpose of this podcast. What's the objective? Is
hmm,
it that you're looking for personal branding? Is it that you're looking for building a brand for yourself or for your organization? Or is it more like a passion project? You're trying to pivot in your career and you're trying to get into altogether a new market.
Hmm.
So, first, we will decide that. And on that basis, we will decide the format and the structure and the content of the book.
Okay.
I'll give you, if you allow me, I'll give you a very small example.
Yes. Yes, please.
Uh, do you know Shantanu Deshpande, Bombay Shaving Company?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know, it is bizarre, but he wrote a post on LinkedIn, and which turned out to be really bad for him, and he got a lot of negative PR for that. So he wrote a
Hmm.
post saying that people, when they're starting new resources, should at least spend 18 hours working for 4 to 5 years of their lives, and they should be worshipping work and not crying. They shouldn't be
Hmm.
cribbing about excess workload. Now we know that millennials are okay working, but this post Gen Zs obviously did not like because they believe in work life balance and they're so good at building boundaries, way, way better than us.
Hmm.
So, what happened was that he got so much of a backlash for that one post that he had to be off LinkedIn for months straight.
Hmm.
He stopped writing on LinkedIn. His marketing directly only and only focused on his brand, and he did not become the brand face straight for like few months. But then what he did, he used a podcast to clean himself. So he created a podcast. It's a very popular podcast. The name of the podcast is The Barber Shop. So what he
Okay.
did in that podcast is he was an entrepreneur. He had to build his personal brand from scratch again because his image in the market was very negative.
Okay.
So he converted his PR nightmare into his favor completely by creating a podcast, The Barbershop, where he
Hmm.
invited guests like Aman Gupta from Boat,
Okay.
Vinita Singh from Sugar. So these were the people, that was the time when Shark Tank had just come. So
Okay.
he got them as guest on his podcast and he spoke about entrepreneurship. He also being a startup funded entrepreneur, speaking
Right.
about how brands should start and how people should work on their startup and basically dissecting these journeys of these big people and
Hmm.
then on creating these small takeaways for people. Suddenly, the podcast was hit. People forgot about the LinkedIn drama he did, and he was out there again. And now
Hmm.
people know Shantanu more than they know Bombay Shaving Company.
True.
So that
True.
is how a podcast can help you build your brand. You just have to decide exactly what is the objective of your podcast.
Hmm. Hmm.
So once the
Okay.
objective is in place, then
Okay.
you think of like the equipment side of it. Is it that you want to launch an audio podcast? Is it that you want to launch a video podcast? Video podcast is slightly more expensive unless you
Right.
do remote recording through Zoom. But if you want to do in person, then it's like a whole setup, huge setup is required, which is expensive. Or you
Right.
can do audio podcast again through Zoom, or there are studios and all you can book. You second step, once the objective, then the content. The third is your budget. Based on your
Yes.
budget, you decide what format you would like to go ahead with and the equipment part of it. Then you hire a team, put together your content, shoot your episodes. For example, this conversation we have, if you
Hmm.
want, this can also be converted into a podcast.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it
Ah.
can. Because what I'll do is I'll extract the audio of this conversation. We
Okay.
will refurbish the audio, we'll make it cleaner, sharper, and then
Hmm.
we will put it on a hosting platform through which it'll go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the audio platforms.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And this is being recorded. Then
Right.
even the video you can put it on your YouTube channel. So now it is live. Later it can go on the YouTube channel as your podcast
So
with the
that
same name.
that yeah, that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Okay.
extract the audio. Audio goes on these platforms, and suddenly it becomes a podcast.
Okay. Frankly, I didn't knew that we were doing a podcast because I thought it's a webinar. You know. Okay. So this is a podcast. Nice.
You can make it into a podcast. It's live right now. Podcasts are
Yeah.
deferred live. They are majorly not done in the live format. So
Hmm.
you, whatever the recording comes, you can edit it and then put it as an episode. So today we are doing this. Probably by next Monday, you can put it out as an episode.
Oh, nice. Okay. Okay. Interesting. I will try that. Okay. So, object, you find your niche, you find your object, then you do your content, and then you record the podcast, right? And
Correct.
then you extract the audio, filter it out, make it more perfect, and upload it onto the platforms.
Correct.
So let's talk about the platforms. Okay. Nowadays, there are multiple podcast platforms. Spotify
Correct.
is one of them, right?
Yes.
But then there is Audible, and there's
Yes.
some Google
Podcast.
podcast
Yeah.
also. So there is a podcast by Apple also, which is iOS podcast. So which podcast channel is more preferred for a person who is starting off versus a person who is already into podcasts for, let's say, 1 or 2 years?
So the best part about the audio industry is, why do you want to restrict it to one platform? From
Okay.
one hosting platform, your
Hmm.
podcast will be available on all the audio directories. We don't call them as audio platforms. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or Google Podcasts, we call them as audio directories.
Okay.
So we use a backend platform. It's just like you create a website, there is a WordPress admin, which is your backend, right? You
Right.
make the changes there and they are visible on the front end of the website. Similarly, there is a backend platform, which is a hosting platform you use. There are many platforms. One is Spotify for podcasters, which was earlier known as Anchor. It is totally free. Then
Hmm.
you had then you have paid platforms like Buzzsprout. There are many, Red Circle. There are many. So you
Okay.
select one hosting platform, you put your content out there. From there,
Right.
you disseminate to all the audio platforms. So
Oh,
it
so
is not
Spotify.
restricted.
Okay, so
Yes.
I can upload it on Spotify and it automatically can go on
You
or
will
stream on
upload
multiple
it
platforms.
on Spotify for podcasters / Anchor or
Correct.
Buzzsprout. From there, you will an RSS feed will be created, a link will be created.
Okay.
That link you can paste to all the platforms, and automatically your podcast is available on the platform. Apart from Audible,
Nice.
Audible is different.
Okay.
Audible invites people to put their content out.
Hmm.
But all the
Okay.
other platforms, be it Amazon, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Spotify, JioSaavn, Ghana, you can put it everywhere for free.
Okay.
You're only
Okay.
paying for the hosting platform, and in some cases, your hosting platform is also free. So it's
Okay.
free to put your content out on all platforms. So why restrict to one? Put it everywhere. But if you
Nice.
want to understand what platform is impactful in India, it is
Huh.
Spotify and Apple Podcasts. They are the best.
Okay. Okay. So Spotify and Apple Podcasts have more number of listeners across India.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
They are the
And also
industry
Globe,
giants.
I'm assuming.
Yes, they are the industry giants.
Nice. Nice. Okay. So one technical question that I will ask you is that you obviously have a lot of experience with the mic, and
Right.
you can talk, uh, being an RJ. Okay. There are not many people who know how to talk or articulate themselves when they are podcasting. So what is one piece of advice that you would like to give them, how they can get accustomed to a mic in front of them?
It's a beautiful question, and I totally get that because when you're a radio jockey, you're trained to talk. I can
Yeah.
talk for hours without thinking twice. I can talk about any topic you give me because that was my job at one point of time.
Hmm.
But a podcast host is a normal human being like you, in some like me basically. Though I my job was such.
Both of us.
And I
Yeah.
totally get it that they, for them, it's not very easy to befriend
Hmm.
Mike. So I'll give
Correct.
you one piece of advice, which a very close friend of mine, I started my radio jockeying journey with him, and he helped me in Hot Story also for some time. So I'll tell you the exact advice he gave me. It's very weird. The analogy is very weird, but it makes so much sense. He's like, consider a mic as a dog. Your mic is
Oh,
a dog, actually. Yeah,
okay.
it's funny, but it makes so much sense. He's like, if you love dogs, if you are
Hmm.
friendly with a stray dog, or if you have a fur baby or a pet dog at your own place or at your friend's place, if you love dog, the love dog will love you back, and you can be vulnerable and open with that dog, because dog is never going to tell what you spoke to them, right? They're never going to
True.
judge you. They'll just
True.
sit and listen to you, right?
Hmm.
So you can be vulnerable, you can be happy, you can be sad, you can feel whatever emotion, you can just blurt it out in front of the dog. The dog will not judge you. But if you're scared of dogs, then the dog will make sure that the dog scares you more and barks at you or bites you back.
Hmm.
It's as simple as that. So it's the same thing. If you give the friendly vibe to the dog, dog is there to help you out. But if you're scared
Hmm.
of the dog, that mic will, you'll be so uncomfortable in front of the mic that mic will become like the only enemy you have in life.
Right.
So that's how we'll have to think about a mic. I'll tell you one trick which I used
Okay.
to use initially when I started radio jockey. Ignore the mic.
Oh,
Just
okay.
think that there is no equipment.
Okay.
Right now, it's just a conversation we are having. You and me, we are having a conversation. I can place a
Right.
mic here and it can become difficult for me. While I
Right.
can ignore the mic and communicate with you for hours without thinking. It's like talking to your friends. So
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
you have to train your brain that you are doing nothing but talking, which you normally do. The
Right.
first thing we learn, you, okay, let's just say we say that it's difficult to articulate, right? Don't you think since you were 2.5 or 3, you started talking and started communicating? How is
Hmm.
it difficult? That's the easiest thing to do. Explaining your
Yeah. True.
thought to the second
True.
person is the easiest thing to do. We've been doing it since like, how old am I? So if
Ages.
I just
Yeah.
deduct 3 years of your life, you've been doing
Hmm.
it since these many years. The only thing
Hmm.
is just
Hmm.
ignore the mic.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. So Neeti, we spoke about extracting the audio and reworking on the audio. But I'm sure that there are people who don't know how to edit the audio or add some features to the audio or edit the video. So if they were to start a podcast with a limited resource, how would they go about it?
So there is a software for audio editing. It is for free.
Okay.
If you ask me if the UI UX is very comfortable, no. It looks very old. It looks
Okay.
like Baba Adam ke zamane ka software, but it is
Okay.
free. And
Okay.
90% of your professional work you can deliver through that one software. Now, of course, I understand how would you learn it. I can only say YouTube is the biggest university for anybody to learn, right? So Audacity is that software which is free and anybody can use and learn.
Hmm.
Okay, learn and then use and edit. Now I still understand there are people who are technically challenged. That's how I am also with other technologies apart from podcasting. So in that case, there is a paid tool which is not very expensive. The name is Descript. Now what Descript does is it transcribes your content. Your audio or video content is transcribed. So whatever you edit, whatever you cut, it's like you cut on a doc, Word doc. Whenever you cut on the Word doc, that line gets deleted, right? So what you do is you cut on that doc, automatically from the audio or the video, that line will be deleted. It's as simple as that. It's very easy to use. So you're not doing anything. You're doing something which you've been doing it from 12 years or 15 years. That is editing a doc. And automatically things, because of AI, things will start working on your uh, audio or video content piece. And then you can just extract that audio or video content piece, and the editing is done without you
Okay.
doing. So there are softwares, thanks to AI, there are many softwares that can help you to do these things. One example I gave you is Descript.
Okay. Which ones do you guys use? Is there any professional software for professional people?
Yeah. So I'm very cheap that way. I still use Audacity a lot because it is
Hmm.
free. Descript is paid. We use Descript also. Then we use this thing Audition as well. That is an Adobe software, which is Audition. That's a paid software, but we use that also. We have licensed version of that also. These are the softwares we work around.
Okay. Okay.
Though I've
Cool.
used
So
many because of the radio jockey thing, but these are my comfortable software.
nice. Noted. I will put those links in the description after we, close this chat. So let's talk about, how can we promote our podcasts. So we discussed about creating the podcast, then we discussed about uploading the podcast. Of course, it's still a content, and the content needs to be promoted. So
Yeah.
how I can promote the podcast?
There's this recent line which I used with my team. Your podcast is the center. It's like the center of the universe, content universe. So
Okay.
you create your podcast and you use the same podcast for all the platforms possible. You are
Hmm.
promoting your podcast as well through that.
Hmm.
Also, you're able to create content for all the platforms, which is very overwhelming. We have so many platforms that it just scare us. Like we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have YouTube, we have, of course, now we have podcast also. Then we have
Hmm.
a newsletter, we have blogs to maintain. Abhi to I've not even counted Snapchat or Pinterest or all of those platforms, because they are still not working for everybody. But even if we
Right.
talk about Instagram, YouTube, we talk about Facebook, blog, newsletter, even we only focus on these main platforms, they also need content all the time. They're like content black holes. They just want you to generate as much content as possible, right? So your podcast becomes your main piece of content. You create small snippets out of it. They can work as reels or YouTube shorts. You do the video, it automatically goes on your YouTube. You transcribe your podcast, and on that basis, using chat gpt or bard or any software, you can create a blog out of it. Then
Okay.
on that, promoting that episode only, you can write a nice newsletter. Hey, 3 things I learned from this podcast, here are these, and you can just listen to the podcast as well. Here's the link. So you use the same social media platforms to promote the podcast. You're giving the content to social media platforms. They're happy because you're providing them content. You are happy because you're able to generate content, and automatically the podcast is being promoted.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So now we come to, the topic that everyone is waiting for. Every marketer who has joined us as an attendee
Can I
wants
guess
to
that?
know. Yeah, yeah, please.
How to monetize my podcast?
Perfect. How to monetize my podcast, how to bring in money.
I understand that. So again, this goes back to the objective. What is it that you're looking for?
Hmm.
If you're
Hmm.
trying to be a content creator, a podcast host, and you're trying to be a content creator, then you can actually pitch your podcast to various brands out there. It's the same way like you work with your Instagram reels.
Okay.
There are brands who collaborate with you, they pay you to create content. Similarly,
Hmm.
there are brands out there, you can collaborate with them and they will pay you to create podcast episodes. One of the recent examples is, I'm sure we all know the Ranveer show, Ranveer
Yes.
Alavadia.
Yes.
He did a recent collab with Mountain Dew. Dar Ke Aage Jeet Hai was the name of the segment in his podcast, the Ranveer Show Hindi podcast. He did this small segment of 8 to 10 episodes where he got people like, let me, Yuvraj Singh, guests
Hmm.
like Yuvraj Singh. He got guests like Yuvraj Singh on his podcast, and he played it around Dar Ke Aage Jeet Hai, because obviously he fought cancer and came back and became a player again. And his journey is actually inspirational for us all.
Yeah.
So that's one way of doing it, getting brands to sponsor your content. Secondly, if you are a brand yourself or a small business yourself, you can use your podcast to generate leads. It's basically you add this as a branding activity, which is there on the top of your funnel to bring leads to you. So when you're talking, you're creating your audience, you're automatically creating your community. And if
Right.
people like you, they like your services, they'll automatically come and
Hmm.
connect with you. And I am not saying it in the air. I've been there, done that for a marketing strategist. In fact, not one, but two marketing strategists and community strategists. They got leads out of their podcast. This particular podcast got 11 leads out of their 10 episode ka season, and he was able to convert four. So that's
Okay.
generating business using your podcast.
Okay.
There are a
Can
lot
you
of small activities. Yeah, go ahead.
right, right. Can you give us a example of a brand who has successfully generated leads and monetized the podcast that they promote?
Okay. Uh, I can give you a lot of brands who've used podcasts. I told you, right, how Shantanu Deshpande used their
Yes.
podcast. There's this brand called Traya Health. I don't know if anybody knows about this brand. It,
No, I
it
do.
was
Yeah.
nowhere. You know about that
Yeah.
brand?
Yes.
How do you know that? It's about their it. I only know them because of their social media presence.
Yeah. Same here. I follow them on their social media. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what? That they have a huge podcast. What the
Yeah.
health is the name of the podcast. So what they do is the same thing. They use the podcast, get important people on their podcast, uh, cut reels out of it, put it on Instagram, boost it, and suddenly Traya Health in 6 months came out of nowhere, and now it's a brand people like you and me know. If you
Hmm.
ask me what they do, I have no idea. They make some oil for your hair, is max I know,
Yeah.
but
They make Ayurvedic oils and everything.
exactly. But they are all over my feed because of their
Hmm.
podcast. So
Hmm.
automatically, I have created my brand authority. I have established my brand voice, and everybody knows about it.
Okay.
6 months ago, nobody knew them as a brand.
Okay. So this is giving me a sense that podcasts are actually a good tool to create a community around your product and service.
Yes. Yes.
Correct me if I'm
It's a
wrong.
great tool to create community. It's a great tool to build your brand.
Hmm.
It's,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
to establish your brand.
Hmm.
And for
Okay.
monetization, as I told you, if individual creators, I told you how they do it.
Yeah.
For example, someone like you only want to work as a creator now. For them, they create their podcast, they launch their podcast, they garner and build a community. And then they pitch to brands, or brands will come to you because now they want to use
Hmm.
your community to put out their
Uh,
products, or their put out their brand message through your community, and they'll pay you for that.
okay. So what is better for a brand to use someone else's community, like use a podcaster who is already famous, or create their own podcasts and then create a community around it?
Whatever floats your boat. If you're a big brand like Big Basket, they recently started a podcast known as Decoding Nutrition with Tanmay Bhatt. Now,
Right.
Tanmay Bhatt is a huge creator. He's not
Right.
only a creator, he's the one who's written all those ads with Karan Johar, that brand which
Yeah.
is for what's the name of
Karan
this?
Johar and
Lenskart.
Kiara. Yeah.
Lenskart.
Lenskart. Yeah.
So he is that person. He's the one who did that cred ads also, all the cred ads.
Correct.
He's a huge marketer. So
Hmm.
he is hosting a podcast for Big Basket. Now, Big Basket is already a well-known brand. It's an online grocery store. We all know about Big Basket.
Yes.
But can we compare it to Instamart? No. Big Basket is a bit behind when it comes to Instamart, right? Or Blinkit. So what they've recently done is they are trying to prove that we are a purpose-driven brand. And that's why the name of the podcast is Decoding Nutrition with Tanmay Bhatt. So in this case, what they are doing is they are trying to create their brand. They're trying to create their brand voice, which is woke. Like we not only are there to provide you services, we care for you. We care for your nutrition. We care for your health. We believe in wholesome growth. Okay, that's how now it's already a well established brand. So it's like they're extending themselves to build a purpose driven brand. On the other hand, Traya Health, we spoke about, it is not a well known brand. It's like I didn't know about it 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's more like
Yeah.
a start. Now, how can they sell Ayurvedic oil? They'll also create a podcast, bring people who speak about mental health, who speak about physical health, who speak about nutrition, who speak about hair, makeup, everything. And now they are also creating a community, which is a very putting across, again, like we are a purpose driven brand, putting across the image that we care for you. Automatically, the brand trust is being built, a new brand is also being established. In Traya Health, the host is actually the founder of the organization.
Yeah. Hmm.
Now, why is the founder doing this? Because the brand is still, it still needs to be established. It's a new brand. For Big Basket, it's then everybody knows what is Big Basket. So they can,
Yeah.
and they also have the budgets to hire a creator like
And
Tanmay to do
movement.
it for them.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's the difference. If you're an established brand, you can go that way. If you are a new brand, I will suggest that personal branding automatically reflects on your brand. It gives that domino effect. Please, and you're comfortable with mic and camera, please go ahead and do it. I'll give you another option. There's a very popular podcast, WTF with Nikhil Kamath.
Yes.
Everybody knows what is Zerodha. It's a
Yeah.
multi-million organization. They don't need to do anything. But nobody
Right.
knew Nitin Kamath earlier.
Nitin Kam. Yeah.
So now
Hmm.
he has realized the importance of content industry. He knows that going forward, content is the only way of selling your product or establishing your brand. That is the reason he started putting that podcast out. And he said it openly. Like, I
Hmm.
know that going forward, content is the only way of running your business or doing anything for that matter. And you have to be the voice. That's
Hmm.
how they. That is why there's a
Hmm.
podcast WTF with Nikhil Kavan. Otherwise, there's no need.
Okay. Nice. One simple question, again revolving around the brands and the podcasts. So we spoke about Big Basket, who is kind of a unicorn now, and we
Yeah.
spoke about Traya, who's a startup. So in the middle, there are lots of MSMEs in India,
Yes.
and I work along with MSMEs, and I've seen MSMEs who have almost zero digital presence. So how can they leverage out of podcasts?
Now, that is exactly when I said, why do they have zero digital presence? Because either
Okay.
they'll have to hire a marketer, they don't understand this, who will create content for them, right? This
Hmm.
is the problem. It is overwhelming. That's why I said we are millennials. We were not born with phones in our hand. So we don't
Right.
know what to do with Instagram. We're very weak when it comes to all these platforms. I am one of them. Trust me, my team has Gen Zs because they know how to use the platform. I only give them content. So
Hmm.
that is how, so which means multiple platforms we want to cater to, but don't know how to do. So start with a podcast which works the base of your content.
Hmm.
Don't want to face the camera, do it in the audio form. Put out your content, use the same content on Instagram, use the same content on newsletter, hire a marketer who can disseminate the content you've created through various platforms. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
And you'll be able to build your community. There's one more
Great.
thing which we don't realize. Rakesh, in podcasting industry, people know who's Neeti. In the industry you are working in, The MSMEs you are working in, nobody knows who's Neeti. They don't care. But while
Right.
you have given me this platform, now they may know who's Neeti and they know, okay, if we want to start a podcast, we can probably go to Rakesh and take Neeti's number.
Right.
That is what a podcast does for you. It has global presence. It is not only available in India, it is available worldwide. So one thing what you can do is people can come back to say what services do you provide, what do you do? Send the link of your podcast. Okay, if you want to understand, here's the writer, here's the link of my podcast. I've already explained what I do there.
Hmm.
That's another way of putting together your content and sharing it. And it's like you're
And it's
sitting
very
here,
impressive.
people can hear in the US also.
Yeah. It's quite impressive because that creates another level of your brand in a way
Exactly.
that it's very sophisticated.
Right.
Right. Right. So, but
Maybe so
does
we
the
work with
podcast,
buzzwords.
yeah. So does the podcast work for the local companies or it is purely for someone who wants to go global?
It's for everybody.
Okay.
If it is not for local companies, then why are people creating content in Marathi or Bengali or I would say all of Punjabi? There are podcasts in every language. So it's all right to create your content in the language you want. In fact, regional languages they work better. So it's
Interesting.
not only for global audience, it's also for your local audience.
Okay. Okay.
And let me tell you one more thing. This is I don't know you. I think we all know who's Neil Patel,
Yeah.
oversized.
Yes.
Neil Patel recently mentioned that we should every brand should look for podcasting industry because that is blue ocean right now. Because when
Right.
a local brand starts a podcast, why aren't they realizing they'll be the first one to do it? They'll
Hmm.
always have that first movers advantage. And suddenly you change the position of your brand.
Right.
इंडिया एज अ कंपनी जहाँ पे इंग्लिश बोलना और सोशल मीडिया चलाना ये दो चीजें आपको आता है बहुत स्मार्ट इट्स एज सिंपल एज
True.
दैट वाह तुम्हारा
True.
तो पॉडकास्ट है ओ माय गॉड
Hmm.
एंड आई एम नॉट एंड आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस इज माय क्लाइंट
Right.
she's into a jewelry brand she owns a jewelry brand and now she wants to create content around mental health.
Hmm.
Okay, we've been working together for 1 year. She's just recently released a podcast. Suddenly, the perspective of people around her, her friends, her family, it's just changed because the content is so professional and it is so beautifully created that people say, oh, we thought it is just a small passion project. Oh, you are already featuring on Apple Podcasts. You are number 15 all across the country. Wow, you're doing something huge.
Hmm.
That's the perspective. It is already helping her in her jewelry business, which has nothing to do with her podcast. It is already creating her personal branding. She's so shy that I've been asking her to come on camera, but she only does audio. But
Hmm.
even her audio podcast is at top 20 on Apple Podcasts in India
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it's based on what kind of content are you putting.
Wow. Oh, that's inspiring.
Yeah, I'll tell
Okay.
you the name of the podcast also. People, please go and listen to our podcast. It's Slow Down with Astha.
Slow down with Astha. Okay.
Astha is
Okay.
the name.
Okay. I'll put that in my description as well.
Nice.
Okay. So
Wow, I'm not
Neeti,
promoting my podcast, I'm promoting my client's podcast. But anyway, go. Go.
great. Thank you so much. Okay. So Neeti, looking ahead, what trends do you see in the podcasting industry? How podcast is changing, from audio, video? Is there any other way of podcasting or any other, directory of podcasting which is coming up really soon?
So, as I told you, first thing is that none of the industries are not being touched by AI. All of us are touched by AI, every industry. So,
Right.
podcasting is one of them. I already told you about tools like Descript. There are tools for video editing also that you click it once, they automatically create the first cut of your video. The switching, for example, if you're talking, your face should be visible. If I'm talking, my face should be visible. Earlier, an editor used to sit and spend 2 hours to work on that 30 minutes ka thing. You're smiling, it seems like you've done that.
I do that.
Yeah, so there are so many AI tools which you just click and they do it in 10 minutes for you. So there are tools which are available like that. Then I mentioned about Descript. There are other tools also which I recently discovered and discussed about. There is Synthesia. Now that's a tool. People don't want to show their face. They don't want to give their voice, but they want to create a podcast. It is an AI tool where they don't need your voice. They'll help you with content. The AI tool will help you with content, voice, of AI avatar, and your content is ready. So there are
Hmm.
so many tools available. If you just search for them, stating your problem, you'll get one AI tool. There is ChatGPT or Bard. Actually creates a podcast script for you. It actually
Okay.
creates a podcast script for you. So research they are doing while you're getting your questions, what you can ask your guest.
But is it really advisable to create a script using AI? What about plagiarism and everything?
Mhm. See, here plagiarism though doesn't matter na, because I'll be asking you questions.
Correct, correct.
It doesn't matter. But is it advisable? It's good to take help, but that cannot be your final thing.
Hmm.
Because if I am doing it, 10 more people are also researching about the same guest and are getting similar questions.
Same results, yeah.
So of course, it's just like सेम थिंग स्विचिंग तो वो सॉफ्टवेयर करके देगा लेकिन एडिट तभी होगा जब एडिटर खुद बैठेगा लेकिन उसके 2 घंटे बच गए. Similarly, you can ask ChatGPT to create questions for you and then ask ChatGPT to give you a few articles which are very important and which you should read. Though then you read that and then you make the changes accordingly. So, is it advisable? Yes and no. Help? Yes. Final? No.
Hmm. Hmm.
Same goes for all the AI too. For that
Right.
matter, Descript also. Descript will help you, yes, but वो इतने finer cuts नहीं दे सकता. But at least for someone who doesn't know how to do it, they'll have a fairly decent output and they can put it.
Yeah, it is
For,
good for startups.
yes, exactly. It's good
Hmm.
for starting and you don't want to invest in a consultancy or an organization or a production company. So it's good for starting.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Neeti, my last question would be, what makes a podcast go viral? And how can we promote a podcast in a manner that it goes viral? Is simply sitting on WhatsApp and sharing it to your friends and please share. Is that one of the strategies
Never.
or
Beginners
sorry?
का strategy तो है ही because nobody
Yeah.
knows you, only your friends and community know you. So please you send them. They'll listen and they'll give you the initial downloads or listens. But then there are other ways also. You go to any marketer and if they say na I know how to make content go viral, they are lying.
Mm,
Nobody knows how to make content viral. You can only be consistent. You can be sharp and you can strategize. Yes, but I have put a reel today and next day it'll go viral. No guarantee.
mm,
There are reels you work with, you spend so much of money, everything is aesthetically pretty, not working. The reel you sit in the bedroom and take 2 minutes to create content, it goes viral. It depends.
true.
Similarly, for podcasts, we can definitely talk about how to promote your podcast instead of saying, like, will it go viral? So, one way of doing that is, as I told you, yes, you can start with WhatsApp. Podcasts are not SEO friendly, the audio form. YouTube is, but podcast is not. So
Mm,
what you have to do is you have to create content and you have to make sure like somehow you are featured on the first page of the audio directory. Apple Podcast के पहले पेज पे आप देखोगे people will click. at least to see, acha, what is this? Right now also, if you click podcast, which is a default app of Apple iPhone, if you click that, the first thing on the top, browse jaake first thing feature mein is one of my clients. So getting
Wow.
yourself, and automatically his downloads, which were averaging at 200 downloads, have suddenly become to 1,000 downloads. One episode in 1 week. 200 in 1 week, 2,000 downloads or listens in 1 week.
So what's the key matrix there? What can be changed?
The
The
key matrix
title, the
is that you
description.
got yourself featured there. Now, how to do that is something which
Hmm.
we tell our clients, we work with them. Content is there, consistency is there, but there are other ways to get noticed. There are sometimes there are forms you fill in, sometimes you connect with people in the industry, in the organization. You put your content piece out. If they like, then only they'll feature, that's for sure. But at least the connects help, because this is India, everything helps with connects and network.
And the featured section, I'm assuming, is a paid section like
No, it's not a
SEM.
paid section.
Oh,
It's
it's
not a
not.
paid section. If they like your content, they will feature you. But how
Okay.
to get yourself noticed is the criteria.
Hmm.
It's not paid at all.
Okay.
Abhi tak, none of these
Interesting.
directories are making you pay in any way.
Okay. Except for YouTube, where the videos, if go viral, you like for 1 million views, you get
YouTube is
10,000.
paying you if your video goes viral.
Correct.
Either Spotify is neither paying you for going viral,
Hmm.
nor are they paying you for using their space as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So either ways, there's no payment. Spotify, yes, definitely pays to their exclusive content creators, or their original shows they pay, but that's very small amount of people. For example, people like Ranveer Alabadia, he was a Spotify exclusive creator.
Hmm.
Then Kritika Khurana, she was there. Then there are smaller shows also. I think one of those shows were Desi Crime. That was Desi Crime, yes, was at one point of time it was a Spotify exclusive content piece. So only very few people they pay. But I wouldn't say like that's a way to monetize, because it doesn't hold the major chunk of monetization. Now, lastly, how to get viral is use take out content from your podcast, create high value, highly produced reels out of it. Make sure the content is brilliant. Put it on your Instagram, put it on your YouTube shorts, and pray to God that something works.
Okay. Okay. Great, Neeti. I think we had a lot of insights of podcasts. Lastly, before ending the session with you, one advice that you have received as a podcaster and that you would like to share with the podcasting industry.
One advice which I have received as a podcaster. I generally give advices, but yeah, let me think about one advice. I think I told you that is like, I wouldn't say that I've received a lot of advice for podcasters, but one advice which I've told as a businesswoman, as an entrepreneur, is like that you give a lot for free. You have to restrict, maintain a balance. That is all I can tell you. But if I would have to give an advice to someone who's starting in podcasting industry, uh, work on your content. Work on your content. Make sure that your content has the ability at least to go viral. It has that point. And I'm not saying it should be validated by 10,000 people. At least according to you, it should have that element. Work on your content sincerely, because you are fighting for 3 second ka attention span, and there are endless mediums where which already provide brilliant content. So it's that you're not only fighting with other podcasts, you're fighting with YouTube, Instagram, Netflix, books, blogs. I don't know. There's so many ways you get content. TikTok, so many things you're fighting with.
Hmm. Hmm.
The funniest thing which I say is that you are fighting with those cat memes who have millions and millions of views while you are creating content, dying every day to create content, yet you don't know why this cat video is viral. Why are people liking this dumb cat video? But put your heart and soul and be consistent. Do not expect results in your first 3 or 5 episodes. At least invest for 15 episodes. But if you genuinely, it's a very, very slow medium. If you genuinely want to see the results, तो एक साल तो भूल ही जाओ. Invest at least a year and a half. And just keep on कहते हैं ना, नेकी कर कुएं में डाल, the same thing. कर्म कर फल की इच्छा मत कर. And just keep on doing it.
Great, Neeti. This was really, really amazing session with you, and you have shared a lot of insights. I still will keep on asking you again and again, but I know that I have to let you go for tonight. Maybe we can have one more session with you sometime later, and I'm sure our audience would love to have you again. So thank you so much, Neeti. It
Thank
was a pleasure speaking to you. It was an honor sharing the screen with you. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you so much for approaching me, Rakesh. It was lovely spending time with you and your audience. I hope this was insightful for them. And yes, whenever you need, we can always connect again.
Great. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.